I love great conversations. Hi, my name is Angel Jones. Thank you for joining me on 12-minute convos where I help you create a brand of your own unique, real self. Listen in as I have conversations with amazing people from all over the world. Good morning, Jason Scott. How are you going on this wonderful, beautiful morning?
Every single minute I am awake, I am happy.
Love it. Tell us, what part of the world are you in right now?
I am currently in London, in the United Kingdom.
That's wonderful. And which of your talents is responsible for us connecting at this time?
It's an excellent question. I think pure luck, serendipity, being in the right place at the right time with the ability of technology to connect us.
Yeah, you were on the guest list, my friend.
Very, very true. I run the Guestlist Podcast. That is one of my many successes that I'm very proud of.
Yeah. Definitely tell us about the podcast, the Guestlist Podcast, please.
So the Guestlist Podcast started as I was someone who was a specialist in my arena. I had started as an entrepreneur, but I'd somehow fallen into events. I'd done very well in events. In fact, I was voted one of the top 100 people in the world in the events community. And then I was given the bad news that I had multiple sclerosis. And the worst thing for MS is stress. And the events industry was given the 5th most stressful job in the world by Forbes magazine. I had to redecide what I was going to do. I decided to document my journey with a show called the Guestlist Podcast. And at the same time, I would invite guests on that had overcome adversity and would both inspire me and my listeners to continue my dream of really giving up my day job and following my daydream, giving up the hustle of 9 to 5 for the hustle of 24/7. Wow. And that's how the Guestlist Podcast started. And somehow, and to this day, I don't know how, it's inspired enough people to have an incredible following of entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs and authors and writers and speakers and doctors who've all seemed to listen to the show and write in and ask questions. And after 5 seasons, we've now taken all their questions, and that's the questions we use for the show.
Pretty amazing stuff, right? The value of a podcast, it being evergreen, and the content that you put on there that's accessible. Pretty amazing stuff, isn't it?
Absolutely. One of the great things I never thought of until recently by someone called Derek Sivers, who is an incredible man who used to have a company called CD Baby, which he sold to Steve Jobs, who I believe became iTunes. And he said, to answer a question sometimes, all you need to do now with podcasts is go, well, that question's answered on episode 231. Check that one out. I thought that was excellent. I'm going to use that.
I like that. Ooh, it'll be a bit challenging for me, but yeah, I just have to find a way.
You have definitely set yourself up with a hell of a challenge.
Yeah. But I love that. Tell us why you will. Well, in fact, before you do that, though, who did you learn the skill of podcasting? Because you basically jumped across into another medium while you were doing the same thing technically, which is conversations, right? But who taught you what was necessary to do a podcast?
I have a very different introduction to the world. I initially was an entrepreneur. I was a teacher, in fact, to start right in the very beginning. I'd studied a Bachelor of Education and then a Master's of Clinical Psychology. I'd gone over to teach in Taiwan. From Taiwan, I'd moved to Southeast Asia, to Thailand. I lost a bunch of kids in a flood in Bangkok. I started something called the Bangkok Swimming School. We taught 10,000 kids a day. And I unfortunately then left. I got divorced. I sold my business. I moved to Southern Africa, to Cape Town. And while there, I studied radio broadcasting and eventually found my way onto a huge radio network with 8 million listeners, and something called Rock the Mic was my show. And then I had a show after that. And anyway, and then I left and obviously moved over back to London, started working here, started my own company, and didn't actually think of podcasting, to be completely honest, until a friend of mine said, you must listen to the John Lee Dumas show, EO Fire. And on listening to that, I realized that you could start your own radio broadcasting, basically company, your own media empire, by creating a podcast. And it was JLD and the EO Fire community and Podcasters Paradise that really showed me the tools I needed to take the education that I already got from a company called Good Hope FM 94.5 on your FM dial,
Wow.
to be able to do this now as podcasting. So I'm very lucky. I have got a formal education into this kind of world of broadcast medium.
Amplification of your voice, amplification of the opportunity to teach, amplification of the opportunity to share. It seems as though something that you are attracted to is helping. Why will you continue to repeat that skill, Jason?
I think in the end of the day, that's the most important thing. I was asked when I was in Thailand, because the school did better than anyone expected, why did I think it was so successful? I said, I used to meet businessmen all the time. I was lucky enough to, the man that flooded my idea with money was a gentleman called Kuna Tsapa, was the inventor of Red Bull. And he said, when people talk about at the end of days, when you're lying on your deathbed, what did you do? And all you can say is, I worked, I had some nice houses, I drove some nice cars, I visited some nice places. You're going to feel a little bit sad about your time on this planet. But if you said, I helped 100 kids to swim, I told 1,000 people about a way that they could make their lives better, I incorporated happiness into everything I did, so it became almost viral and infectious in the way that I live. Well, that's something no one has ever said, I wish I hadn't done. And I think that's why I implement learning and teaching into everything I do, no matter what company or format or function. It's always about people, profit, and purpose.
Love it. If people wanted to connect with you, to follow your path, follow your story, follow what you're doing, Jason, where's the best place for them to go?
The easiest is probably just my name. Just type in Jason Allen Scott, ALLAN in the middle. I'm on Twitter pretty much every day at Penthouse Lord, and I have a website, www.jasonallenscott.com. And as you know, I answer all my LinkedIn personally, although it is a long line. So it does take me a while. But yes, you'll always get a proper answer.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Well, Jason, tell us one other thing that you've done consistently over the last 3 years, please.
Mentorship. I'm from South Africa, as I mentioned. My number one hero, and the man that, besides my father, that I absolutely give everything to, is Madiba. And Madiba's greatest teaching Madiba is Mandela. For those that don't know, it means my grandfather. And it means that each one teach one. The ability that we should be mentoring and we should be mentored. And if you look at every great athlete, every great hero, every great king, he was mentored in, or she was mentored into that journey. There was someone above them that taught them the way, and someone below them that they could teach. In fact, it was Alexander the Great that said, I learned more from Aristotle than I did from any teacher of war about the life I lead. So I say to everyone, get a mentor, get a group of mentors, find someone to help you live the best life you can live, and then in return, take someone below you and give them the same opportunity.
How does this make you feel? Definitely the mentor part. Well, there are two sides of it, right? You being the mentor at times and you being the mentee. How does it make you feel?
It's a strange feeling that is both egotistical and soulful. There's a part of you that goes, wow, I did a great job. I deserve that pat on the back. Well done, me. And then a part of you that's humbled at the fact that you just made someone's life better. You, in this world of contradictions and fake news and philosophies and religions and things we all don't agree on, the one thing we all can agree on is if you make one person's life better, you've lived a life worth living.
Suggest to someone that's listening, someone that may be considering being a mentor, someone that may be considering becoming a mentee, why they should even consider doing that, Jason?
Because there's very few things in this life better than doing it. If there's anything in this life that I've learned, and I've had a very tumultuous 42 years on this third rock from the sun, it's that the greatest thing we can do is to be loved and to love in return. And sometimes you can't find that in a partner or a family member or even a friend, but you can find that in a mentee, and you can find that in a mentor, someone that gives you that unconditional purpose, that promotion, that support, someone that's been there before you. Another great expression is to stand on the shoulders of giants, to see further than they did. That's the purpose of every mentor. And I think that is something that everyone should really do. And until you've done it, until you've been a mentor, until you've been a mentee, you don't realize that it's this greater purpose that is so more powerful than anything you can do for yourself.
Amazing audience. You're hearing it live here from Jason Allen Scott. Again, you can connect with him by just Googling Jason Allen Scott. Do we point them to jasonallenscott.com? Is that the best place?
More than happy.
Wonderful.
Another thing to check out if you are to have a look at mentorship is something called Level Up on Slack.com.
Sweet. Love it. All right, my friend. Well, let's switch gears for a moment now. Let me invite you now into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. Jason, what is your earliest childhood memory?
I was 5 years old. I was coming out of a preschool for scared children. I remember thinking that was a strange name at the time. And walking out to see my grandmother, my grandfather, and my father waiting for me at the gates. And it was the happiest moment of my life.
How old do you think you were?
I know exactly how old I was. I was a month before turning, I always say 5, but my father recently told me I was actually 4 years old at the time. So I was 4.
Why do you think this memory is so clear? And is it possible to connect this memory to who you are now?
Definitely. It's in everything I do now. I grew up with only my father. I never had a mother. My grandmother and my grandfather raised me as best they could. We lived in the only house in a council flat area. There were 8 of us in a 2-bedroom house. And I think it's because in the beginning, I was moved around a lot. I had different people trying to take ownership of me. And I never really had a place that I could call home or people that I thought were my parental figures. And I think at that exact moment, some part of my conscience must have realized that those 3 people would be the most important people in the rest of my life. And they were taking me somewhere that I would eventually call home.
Wow.
And although I've now lived in various countries and I've traveled the world quite a few times over, that idea of home just being where people you love are and people who love you has never left me.
Love it. Well, we can definitely change positions on the mic. I'm glad that you connected the dots. Well done. If we fast forward to when you were 12, what was your favorite song?
This is very embarrassing. When I was 12 years old, it was Billie Jean at My Door by Michael Jackson.
There we go. You know, it's fascinating. The conversation I had before was with one guy that spent the last couple months with Michael Jackson.
Oh, amazing is that?
How amazing. And he's in India. He's in India. That's amazing. All right, my friend. All right, well, we've arrived at our destination. But before we get off of this time machine, there is a small declaration form. So it's yes or no, possibly a bit more. We're going to move pretty quickly here. Are you ready, Jason?
I am ready.
Jason, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
Every single year, I take one person and I take them on a journey of discovery of who they can be. And at the end of that year, I try and hand to them something that I think has been my greatest learning. And I take from them something that they found has been their greatest learning through the journey.
Wow.
So I'm hoping at the end of my life, there are hundreds, if not thousands of people that have taken everything I've learned, all my greatest mistakes, all my greatest learnings, and will move it one step ahead.
Are you married?
I am happily married to my best friend in the world for 2 years this year.
Wow, congratulations. Do you have children?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sadly, we do not have any children.
All right. Do you believe in God?
I do. I believe in 2, actually. I believe in a God that created the world, the universe, and everything around us. And I believe in the God that we have within self that allows us to create.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
I'm very thankful to say that I beat my grandfather. My grandfather said, if you are lucky, at the end of your life, you'll count your best friends in one hand. I can count mine on 2.
Love it. Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
Sadly not. No, I don't watch TV at all. We do choose one day a week. It's normally a Sunday. And we can watch something, although we discuss it, my wife and I, to see if it has any value. And then we have to decide why it has value and why it deserves our time. We only have 86,400 seconds in a day. How we spend it is the most important part of my life.
My friend, if you had to share with us your own unique real statement, a statement that represents who you are, what would you say that is?
Remember that mentor leadership is about serving. It was Jesus himself who said, for even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many.
Amazing. Well, Jason, this has been a great pleasure, my friend. Before you leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
Remember, in your working life, there are 80,000 hours. Think macro about where you want to be, but work micro where you are right now. to get there.
Jason Scott, thank you for being on What is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones.
It has been an absolute pleasure, Mr. Jones, and I look forward to hearing many more.
Thank you for being on 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. Stay tuned for more from our advertisers.
Diabetes is a mountain pandemic. It's a disease that's not acute but chronic. Similar to this rhyming method, I have simplified the definition, the signs and symptoms, and the complications of diabetes for both adults and children in my books, Poems for Patients, A Focus on Diabetes, and The ABCs of Diabetes for Children. These books are available on Amazon.com, and for more information, you can visit my website, poemsbyaj.com. That's poemsbyaj.com.